Welcome to The Death of Miss Whitmore, written by Afonso Carvalho and Ryland Mason. A Detective Shepard Rogers locked room murder mystery. Hello, friends. Welcome to The Death of Miss Whitmore. In last week's chapter, after another grueling family dinner, which ended in fighting, Miss Kitty retreats to her study for some much-needed relaxation and a nightcap. With the heavy oak study door locked and bolted from the inside, Kitty settles in for a bit of reading before bed. In the morning, Emily can't find Miss Kitty. After searching the house, she calls the police. Chapter 6. The Mystery Begins. Detective Rogers and Detective Adams arrive at Whitmore Grange amidst the chaos outside, with police officers milling around, the coroner's van, the CSI unit, and multiple police vehicles can see that something terrible has happened. But Captain Plant has given them very little to go on, only saying that it is a crime scene, a possible murder, something that would need exceptional and delicate attention and discretion. They are both confused as to Captain Plant's orders. As they make their way up the front steps, they give their name and rank to the guard at the door, putting on gloves and shoe covers. As they enter the house and continue through the foyer, they see two uniformed officers and one civilian talking to two detectives in the dining room, presumably being questioned. They proceed down the hallway towards the commotion. As they approach the study door, they examined the opening. The outside of the doorframe seemed intact and complete. Adams enters the room and approaches the medical examiner. "Dr. Liu, how are you?" Adams asked. "I'm a little perplexed today," comments the doctor. "Why is that, Doc?" "That's not like you," Adams comments. "Well, the victim, Kitty Whitmore, you know, she owns the textile company outside of town and is a wealthy and big deal in town. She also runs the Kitty Fund, where she sends the kids to college, along with all those after-school programs at the high school. I met her a few times when I was doing volunteer work at the school." Dr. Liu continued. "She has a single bullet hole in the center of her forehead, but no exit wound. So there's not too much blood, which means she was not shot up close, but from some distance away, which means someone shot her from somewhere else, but I couldn't tell you from where or how. But the door was bolted from the inside. When the officers broke down the door, the room was empty. One paramedic, Ronnie P., and I were the only people in the room until the CSI team showed up, and they found no gun in the room," Doc stated. Rogers listening to the doc as he enters the room. "Doc, were the windows open?" Rogers asks. "No. Tyler Raymond, the CSI leader, checked all the windows. They're all locked, and there is no sign of tampering with the locks or the windows," Doc responds. "What about the door, Doc? What's the story with that?" Adams inquires. "The door was bolted from the inside. Emily, the housekeeper, was able to unlock the doorknob from the outside, but the bolt was engaged from the inside, so the door would not budge," Doc replied. "Okay, Doc, what you're saying is that the killer entered the room, somehow, shot the victim, and vanished from a locked room, somehow. Is that it, Doc?" Rogers asked. "That's all I can come up with so far. I know it's weak and doesn't make sense, but so far, that's it. I'll know more once CSI finishes," Doc replies. Could she have been shot through the window? Or is the chimney wide enough for someone to descend and shoot? Adam asks the CSI team leader, Tyler. Walks over to the detectives, and Doc Lou listens to the theories being tossed around. The windows are all locked. I have checked them myself. All the locks are intact, and the window panes and frames are also intact and defect-free, Tyler stated. What about the chimney? Adam asks. I checked the flute. It's only about 8 inches wide. There's no way anybody could enter that way, Tyler stated. Rogers wanders back to the door and studies the door frame from the inside. There seems to be bits and pieces of the door frame splintered and missing. Turning around, he notices all the wood splinters and debris on the floor and along the perimeter of the door, with several rounded impressions of the door itself. Who broke the door down? Asked Rogers. It was Officer Tom Bray and Officer Peter Dunbar. They were the first ones on the scene, Doc stated. Where can I find them? Rogers asked. They are being interviewed in the dining room along with the housekeeper, Doc responds. Adams, let's go see what they have to say, Rogers states. As they approach the dining room, they can hear the officers being questioned, along with the housekeeper, by the other detectives. Good morning, Detective. I'm Detective Rogers, and this is my partner, Detective Adams. May we ask you some questions? Roger asks. Good morning, detectives. I'm Detective Simmons, and this is my partner, Detective Wells, said Simmons. Nice to see you. I believe we have met at the station before, Roger replies. Yes, detectives. We were just about done here. We will leave you to it, replies the other 2 detectives as they leave the room. Emily, can I start with you? Can you please tell me exactly what happened this morning? Rogers asked. Okay, well, the day started as usual. I got up at my average time of 6 a.m., showered, dressed, and went to the kitchen. I had coffee and started to make breakfast. At about 7:30, the missus still hadn't entered the dining room for breakfast. I began to worry. The missus is never late. So I went up to the master bedroom and knocked on the door. There was no answer. I knocked louder, but still nothing. So I turned the knob and opened the door. The bed was still made. That's when I figured she fell asleep in the study. So I went down and knocked on the door. But there was no answer. I knocked louder, but there was still nothing. I used my key and unlocked the door. The knob turned, but it didn't open. So I assumed it was bolted from the inside. It was unusual. Also, something odd happened. Last night, when I brought her warm milk with brandy, when I knocked on the study door, I heard her unlock the deadbolt before she opened the door. After she took her drink, she bolted the door again. That was unusual. I can't remember when she locked the door. When I could not open the door this morning, I checked all the rooms, including the basement. That's when I called the police, she finished. What did you do after you called the police? Rogers asked. I went out to the front porch to wait. Then I called both brothers and left messages for them to call the house, Emily stated. Have they called back? Adams asked. No, I have not talked to them, Emily stated. Did you do anything else? Rogers inquired. Yes, I did. I walked around to the east side of the house, thinking I could peek through the study windows, but I realized the windows were too high to look into. Then I came back onto the porch to wait, Emily stated. Then what happened? Adams asked. The police arrived, and they asked what happened. I told them everything. and they tried to open the door but couldn't. That's when I suggested looking into the windows. Then they got a ladder and went to the east side to look into the windows. That's when Peter saw the body. Tom got the battering ram, and they broke down the door," Emily stated. "Once the police arrived, were any of you left alone?" Rogers asked. "No. Well, Tom went out to the tool shed to get the ladder. Then he went to get the battering ram from the patrol car. But he was only gone for about 2 minutes. Other than that, we were always together," Emily answered. "Officer Dunbar, what happened once Officer Bray returned with the battering ram?" Rogers asked. "We proceeded to break the door down. It took about 10 or 12 whacks before it finally gave way," Peter stated. "Once the door was opened, what did you do?" Rogers asked. "We looked into the room. Then Emily fainted. But none of us entered the room. Once we saw the body, we did not enter the room. Tom called the paramedics and the coroner, and I called the captain. Then we waited for the ambulance and everyone else to arrive," Peter said. "Who was the first person to enter the room?" Rogers asked. "Ronnie P., the paramedic. Then Doc Lou entered about a minute later," Peter stated. "And none of the three of you ever entered the room?" Adams asked. "No, sir. One of the paramedics was checking on Emily, and the two of us stayed where we were. Then they moved us to the dining room, and we've been waiting here ever since," Peter recounted. "Emily, can you go through last night's details? Did anything unusual happen last night?" asked Rogers. "Well, a little. The brothers, John and James, and Brittany, James's wife, were here for dinner," Emily stated. "Is that out of the ordinary?" Rogers asked. "No, the first Sunday of every month they come for dinner," Emily remarked. "Did anything unusual happen last night?" asked Rogers. "Well, they did have a loud fight about money, but that was pretty common. Then they all got up and left the house before dessert," stated Emily. "What did Miss Whitmore do after that?" Rogers asked. "She was so upset, I could tell. She asked for her warm milk with brandy. Then she went to the study," replied Emily. "Did you see or talk to her after that?" Rogers asked. "When I brought her her drink, she unlocked the door, took the drink, then relocked the door. That was the last time I saw her," Emily recounted. "What did you do after that, Emily?" Adams asked. "I cleared and redressed the table, did the dishes, cleaned up the kitchen. Then I made myself a cup of tea and went to my room," Emily replied. "Where is your room located?" asked Adams. "My room is on the 3rd floor, at the back of the house," Emily replied. "Did you hear anything last night?" Rogers asked. "No, nothing. If the miss wanted anything, she would ring, but nothing like that. I didn't hear anything," Emily replied. "Emily, I know you live here, but unfortunately you cannot stay here since this is a crime scene," Rogers stated. In next week's chapter, the investigation begins. The police were called, and the study door was broken down. The detectives arrive along with the coroner, Dr. Lou, and Tyler C., the head of the CSI. The body of Miss Kitty is examined. Foul play is definitely in play. So, stay tuned, follow, like, and comment. It helps us know you're listening and that you like it. Thank you for your continued support.